And welcome to this edition of the Cold Front. Today we're talking about weather and sports. I'm Sean Bailey.
And I'm Matthew Schaefer. And for as long as sports has been played, a lot of them have been played outdoors and in all types of weather conditions. And this isn't just limited to baseball and football, the big ones you think about. You know, track, there's wind problems.
Yeah.
And golf, obviously you can't play in rain and lightning. You've seen that in the
Right.
movie Caddyshack, where that's bad. But there's all sorts of examples where weather affects the game.
Yeah, and that also, obviously goes into baseball, but wind is really the main issue, especially when you're running outside. Obviously, if you're running into the wind, it's going to slow you down. And if you got that tailwind, it's going to give you that little extra pep in your step to run even faster. And talking about this before we started, actually you don't necessarily, or you aren't able to get a record if you have the tailwind because it's such a great influence in terms of your time for running.
Yeah, and that's basically on the shorter distance where you're only running in one direction. But if the wind's too strong, your time can be affected, and the record books will note that. So even if you run fast enough to be a record time because it was wind aided, and it could be even fast enough without the wind, but just because of that wind, you won't be able to. And of course, though, if you're running the full circle on the track, the wind will cancel each other out, but it's still a little toll if at the time you're running into the wind, who can run into it better. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into track, and that's just on the wind side of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the asterisks in baseball. Not steroids, but wind. Also, temperature has a lot to do with a lot of things too, especially with running. Obviously, if you're running in heat, you're going to sweat a lot more. Obviously, your heart rate's going to go up more too. So there is a lot of issues with temperature.
A lot of the tracks, that you run on are dark colored, so that they really hold in that heat. So when the sun beats down on it, even if it's an 85 degree day, which is warm but not oppressive, that track temperature can get very warm.
Yeah, especially like he said, most tracks are dark in color. What we call that in meteorological terms is albedo, and that's the amount of light that it reflects back. So black actually absorbs a lot of the light and keeps it in that general area. White, so when you have snow, for instance, it bounces back. So the albedo is a major concern when it comes to temperature, and also we have to deal with not only temperature but moisture as well. When you're running through higher pressure or lower pressure or more moist atmospheres, you tend to have less dense atmospheres, which will allow you to run a little bit faster.
Yeah, the air is not quite as thick. You can slice through it a little bit faster. And while these, you can kind of feel them. There's research that's shown that there are fractions or percentages that show that you do improve your speed.
And track isn't the only sport that's affected by weather. Also, we have golf, which is another outside sport, which is heavily aided by wind. Obviously, if you're hitting the ball into the wind, you're going to have a tough time getting that par 5 or par 4 in par.
Well, absolutely. The golf ball is you might think it's small, so the wind might not be able to grab a hold of it, but it's so light that once it's in flight, if you have any sort of wind, that ball's going to curve, slice, whatever, go shorter, go longer. The wind's really going to affect that tremendously in a game.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not just the speed that affects it, it's also the direction, obviously. If you're going to hit it really hard, and it's just going to fork.
You got a strong crosswind?
Yeah. Bye-bye ball. Bye-bye birdie.
And that's something that you have to absolutely account for as a golfer.
Yeah. Also, temperature is a concern there as well. Obviously, if you're walking around 18 holes in a very hot day and a very hot, humid day, it's not going to be your best game probably, but also it's not going to be great for the ball either because actually it's actually going to be better for the ball, not for you. If you're hitting the ball through warmer and less dense air, it's going to not be as slowed down as if it was by dry or cooler air. So it's actually better to play in that heat, but not for your human health.
Maybe
psyche.
They balance each other out a little bit.
Yeah.
And getting a little bit away from the trajectories issues with wind, a little bit more serious issue when it comes to lightning. Everybody's watched the movies or heard of cases and cases actually happen. People get struck by lightning every year, and especially on the golf course, just because you're 3 or 4 feet taller when you got that long metal golf club sticking up above you on your backswing, and that's very dangerous. I know as much as you want to finish that back 9, if lightning comes, you can go another day. It's better than losing your life and never golfing again.
That's true. I mean, we don't know if there's golf in heaven yet. But in terms of lightning as an issue, in terms of death, 85 people are killed every year by lightning. 275 are injured. And around 5% of those deaths are related directly on the golf course. But also, a lot of injuries occur on a golf course. Obviously, there's a lot of trees and your backswing that can trigger or be a lightning rod of sorts and really cause injury and, in some cases, death. So be aware if you are going out golfing, it's a very heavy hazard. And lightning is a huge issue, especially when it comes to outdoor sports. Not just in terms of golf, there is some truth to the fact that if you're a male, you're 85, the breakdown of lightning deaths is 85% are male and 16% are female. This could be attributed to golf because more men typically golf. Not saying women don't, but typically it's a more male-dominated sport. And I mean, also they happen in the summertime when people are outside most. So there is some correlation between golf and lightning and injuries.
And on the golf course, there really isn't any safe place to be. You're either in the middle of the fairway where you are the tallest thing around, or you're under a tree, which is the tallest thing around. So if you see lightning in the distance, you know, if you can see it, it can strike you, and even if it's in the distance, that's time to start walking back to the clubhouse.
Yeah, and most golf courses that are at least 18 holes will have some sort of shack too, where you can go for safety. But don't take lightning with a grain of salt. It's a serious thing, and from the most part, golf courses will shut down when they see lightning, much like many other sporting events do as well. But keeping with the outdoor theme, also not only 25% of lightning deaths occur in open fields, not related to golf, but 14% also, or 8% rather, occur when there's water involved, so lake or being on a boat or out at sea. So fishing is also a major concern in terms of lightning and weather-related sports deaths.
Yeah, and with fishing, it's not necessarily, a lot of it's probably attributed to the fishing rod being of some sort of metal, whether aluminum or whatnot, but you're so low, you think you're low to the ground, but think if you're in the middle of the lake, what's higher than you? And if it strikes anywhere near the water, well, water conducts electricity, and if you're on your aluminum boat or even in a wood boat, that can go right through, fry your boat up, and you're in it.
Yeah, and there's not too much, like you said, that you can do other than get off the lake when you see or hear, well, see lightning or hear thunder.
And I know there's a lot of, if you're fishing, you can get the radios that broadcast the Coast Guard, and they'll send out the warnings or anything. If there's lightning, you should probably be able to get the weather channels on there. So it's something you got to be listening to if you're out on the water, especially if you're far away from land.
Yeah. I mean, it's also best just to be prepared, know the weather in advance when you are doing something outside, because ultimately you do want to be safe. So, we're going to take a quick break, but afterwards we're going to talk a little bit more about baseball and football. So stay tuned.
Hi everybody, I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
A few of you may want to speak to me either after class or in my office hours. Work on a little further. Let's go ahead and take yours from the top and pass them back.
Oh, guys, I got an A! It's probably because I went to the library. I'm so excited.
everybody, I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
Danse, balance, suis la cadence. On lève bien tes hanches au bal du dimanche. Danse, que la fête commence. Dans ma belle robe blanche, je suis ton chou.
You didn't give up on sex? Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
Every child is curious. George, look what I found. Turn their curiosity into a lifelong love of learning. That's a periscope. It's one of the most important gifts you can share. Create a curious reader. Oh, you want to build a castle like that one? This is super bedtime reading. Share a book together today. Visit read.gov.
You can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bagging lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me.
Feed the pig.
So, are you going out tonight?
I can't. My parents say I have to be home right after work.
That's so gay.
Totally gay.
Oh, that is so Emma and Julia.
Why are you saying that's so Emma and Julia?
Well, you know, when something is dumb or stupid, you say that's so Emma and Julia.
Imagine if who you are were used as an insult. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
Today is Saturday. Today is Saturday. Salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, throw a ball Thursday. Water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday. Let's move Monday, sparkles next Sunday. All the healthy children eat well and move a lot. And move a lot. And move a lot. Eat well and move a lot.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day.
Skip a rope Saturday, freeze tag Friday, tap dance Thursday. Whole grains Wednesday, dry your veggie Tuesday. Let's move Monday, split the sweet Sunday.
Eat well and move a lot.
Today is Saturday. Yeah. Today is Saturday. All the healthy children, all the healthy children.
Get ideas. Get involved. Get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Danse, balance, suis la cadence. Ondule bien tes hanches au bal du dimanche. Danse, que la fête commence. Dans ma belle
You didn't give up on sex? Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
Every book is an adventure waiting to come to life. Visit new worlds. Encounter new friends. And discover the power of reading. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter. A new world awaits. Read.
Time to join forces. Get energized. And fuel up right. Because starting today, every kid in America has a mission. Bring out the action hero in you. Be part of the greatest action movie ever. The first movie that puts you in the action. Show us how you train and eat like an action hero. Join in at actionheroalliance.com.
That's low. That's low. That's low.
Look, he's blushing.
Seriously.
Welcome to my block party. Glad you can make it.
The only triple doubles you get come with fries.
I can do this all day. Your moves are just gay.
Using gay to mean dumb or stupid, not cool.
Not cool.
Not in my house, not anywhere. It's not creative, it's offensive to gay people. And you're better than that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
And now we're going to shift gears a little bit. If you couldn't tell behind us, we have our lightning storm over the Notre Dame football field, and that's where we're gonna start for right now.
Yeah, Notre Dame football. This is this year, and then September 3rd of 2011, the Lightning delayed the game between Notre Dame and the University of South Florida. But twice, actually. At halftime, it was delayed, and later in the fourth quarter, they again delayed for severe weather. And this is a picture that we have behind us of the lightning striking near the stadium. There were over 300 confirmed lightning strikes within a 10-mile radius of the stadium during the game time that day. So that was definitely dangerous, especially with all those aluminum bleachers. It
strikes one, and it goes around and gets all of them.
And while the stadium, I mean, there was a capacity crowd of 81,000 people there that day, and while most of them did evacuate when the orders were, there's still some other pictures, not this one, that shows people still in the stands when lightning is striking behind the press box. Wow. So some people just chose to stay, and that's obviously not a smart decision. And football is a sport that can happen. Early in September, it's still major thunderstorm season before it gets into the winter of the sport. But
thunder snow.
Yeah, then we get thunder snow. But yeah. So there's just a lot going on, and obviously dangerous when you have that many people that you have to clear out fast when there's an impending storm. And that's why most of these big games, whether it's a meteorologist on staff or a local TV station will sometimes take the duty of forecasting for a stadium. They have to be able to have a plan to get that enacted fast.
Also, a lot of companies are popping up that offer this sort of meteorological service. The private sector meteorology is booming with this because these events, obviously, if you're going to send people home or cancel a game, you want to know that this weather is going to be happening, or you want to be very sure that something's going to impact this game. And that's kind of what happened here. I mean, 81,000 people, it's not easy to crowd them all inside, but luckily they were able to do that for most of them, except for the people willing to risk their lives, which is definitely not something we advocate here.
Well, just as an aside, you would think that the ushers would be ordered to, force evacuate people, say you have to get the safety, because it really is a life or death situation. You have people that will wait it out, and I think that there should, obviously it's hard to control 81,000 fans if even 30 of them don't. It's such a small percentage, but everybody really needs to get out in that situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's really not the only thing that affects football in terms of lightning, because we do have some areas with retractable roofs and other stadiums, so football is just not affected by lightning.
Yeah, there's a lot more, and football has been hailed as the sport that just loves the weather. You play in the rain, the mud, the snow. That's what the game was made on, and a lot of the northern cities feel a lot of this, and there's a lot more stats on the cold games because it's more of a winter sport, but it can get pretty hot in September when they're first starting too.
Yeah, like we were saying about the albedo, I mean, that AstroTurf will actually trap a lot of that heat in and make the field feel so much warmer than the surrounding air.
It is, and AstroTurf, that was an invention in the 70s, I believe. It's basically carpeting. It's a very hard surface, but it allowed for some dome stadiums to be built, and a lot of outdoor stadiums started to use them because it's much easier to maintain than grass. It's easier kept, and it was able to look nicer. So it got popular, and in a lot of the southern stadiums, they use this, and now unofficially, they don't really have any official list of the warmest temperatures, but as with most sports, official weather data is taken at the beginning. So this is all kickoff data. The warmest game on NFL record was the Dallas Cowboys against the Philadelphia Eagles. This one was in Dallas. Obviously, Dallas, Texas is a very warm part of the country. Now they have a retractable roof, but a few years ago they just had Texas Stadium.
Yeah.
And 109 degrees was the kickoff temperature, but because of what you said about the AstroTurf, they have thermometers on the field too. The field temperature was 150 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what the players are being played on, getting tackled against that hot carpeting with all that padding. And now, along the lines, I'll go down another one. Now, that game was in 2000, actually. In 1987, Los Angeles Raiders at Kansas City, 106 degrees kickoff time. And back in 1971, for Archie Manning's first game with New Orleans, that was back before the Superdome, they played outdoors at Tulane Stadium.
Okay.
They don't have a game temperature with the kickoff because the thermometer was on the field. The thermometer read 130 degrees. We can assume that it wasn't that hot air temperature, but if you're that close to the field within 5 feet, that radiates up and it actually feels like you're playing on 130 degrees. That's just insanely hot.
Right, and I mean the main difference between this AstroTurf and the grass is the grass will actually have to absorb some of that heat, and I mean some of the moisture also in the ground will absorb some of that heat.
And it's a thicker layer, so it takes longer to heat. The AstroTurf is just this thin little layer that heats up fast.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in terms of what's going on the field versus just what the fans can feel. Also, when you have high humidity days, those
and that happens a lot when it's hot. It almost just is hand in hand. When it's hot, it's humid. Right. So a lot of times, I mean, we don't have any heat index values for any of these games, but those can really start climbing fast with any sort of temperatures above 100 degrees. It doesn't take much humidity at all to make it feel even more oppressive than it already is.
Right. I mean, once you get dew points in the mid-60s and then temperatures in the 90s, you're asking for it in terms of that sticky feeling. And places like Arizona, I mean, they'll have hot heat, but it won't be associated with the moisture. So it doesn't feel.
Arizona's been on this several times. We're having 103-degree games. I mean, now again, they also have a retractable roof stadium with an air conditioning system, and a lot of that's for fan comfort and player comfort. So a lot of these teams are designing their stadiums and around their climate, which is really cool to start to see as they start popping up these nice new stadiums.
Yeah. And speaking of stadiums, actually, on a little bit of an aside, the Olympics are coming up this year, and they recently had the bid for the 2016 Olympics and the 2020 Olympics, I believe, are coming up too. But during the 2016 Olympics, there's a place called Qatar in the Arabian Peninsula that was wanting to host the Olympic Games. Well, they're in the middle of the desert. Their temperature gets in the hundreds easy. What they were thinking about, since they didn't have the funds to do like a stadium with a retractable roof or an Olympic-sized stadium with a retractable roof.
Or just a dome, but that's still expensive to put a big roof on there.
What they were actually thinking about doing, which is really cool, is a cloud, like sort of a hovering air conditioning unit over the stadium to keep the players and the fans cool. So it's not just here in the U.S. that we adapt to that sort of weather, but it's a cool thing about it. Unfortunately, though, Qatar did not get the bid. Actually, they were like one of the first people out, but and that's actually the bid that Chicago lost.
But that's something that when you're bidding for something like that you got to account for the weather to try to make it comfortable, because a lot of the Olympics, it's very fan based and how well the fans are going to be comfortable. You don't want fans are going to be traveling from all over the world to come and just be oppressively hot or freezing cold.
Because they were actually thinking about moving it to October, which their October average temperatures in the 90s as well, or upper 80s.
Not much better, but
yeah, it's at least not triple digits, I guess. But yeah, so there's a lot with football and stadiums that goes into weather that goes into the design of these sort of stadiums.
And on the other spectrum of hot, it can get extremely cold, and that's what we think about. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a Packer fan, and I know that might not be happy with a lot of the Bears fans around the area, but very similar to Soldier Field at Lambeau Field. When it snows and gets really cold in the winter, that's exactly opposite. Of Lambeau Field, of course, has the coldest game on record. That was the NFL championship game in 1967, played on New Year's Eve, where field temperature was -9 degrees. Actually, I believe it was -13. I think I just messed up my numbers on the two coldest days. -13 degrees Fahrenheit with a wind chill of -36, which puts the winds at around 10 to 15 miles per hour. And like that doesn't sound like strong winds, but with that cold of temperatures, anything is brutal.
Yeah.
And there's that one is obviously known as the Ice Bowl, and there's another one known as the Freezer Bowl, played in Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio. This was January 10th, 1982, the AFC Championship game. This one has a little bit more weather impact on the game. The Dallas Cowboys stayed real close to the Packers in the really cold temperatures. Down in this game, Cincinnati played San Diego, a warm weather team, and San Diego was kind of considered a better team that year. And the week before, they won in Miami, where it was 88 degrees and humid. So the next week, they go up to Cincinnati, where it's -9 degrees with a -37 degree wind chill. And if you use that wind chill temperature, that's a 125 degree difference in 1 week of playing conditions.
Wow. I mean, I guess you talk about a temperature boundary or some sort, but that's huge.
Yeah,
and your body must not be happy with you if that's...
And Cincinnati won the game 27-7, and with the wind and everything, it was just horrible. One of the players on one of the teams went out the tunnel first to try to tell his teammates what the weather was like. And he came back in and said, if you have any extra layers on, take it off. They're bulky, makes it harder to move, and it's not going to matter anyways.
Oh, no.
Like, it was just that cold that it was just extremely out there. But it was a pretty full crowd. Almost 50,000 fans were out.
Wow.
There, so
it's dedication right there.
Well, it's the championship game, I guess. If you're not doing so well that season, your fans probably go home and watch it on TV in front of the fireplace or something. But it can just get that cold, and it's actually interesting to know. You know, the Bears, they had a dark blue home uniforms. Packers dark green. Minnesota, back when they played outdoors, they're the dark purple.
Right.
Well, if you go down south, you know, most people think of the darker colors as your home jersey. Well, Dallas, Miami, and the Saints, when they played outdoors, their home uniforms were white. That goes back to that albedo. You want your opponent to really have that, your uniform as warm as possible, and you want your home uniform to reflect all that heat if you're in the south, and in the warm, you want that, if you're in the north, you want that sun taking in all the heat you can. So even the color of the jerseys and color schemes are determined by weather.
Yeah, it's weird. That adds another element to home field advantage.
And you can also see stadiums, you know, built with overhangs and roofs to try to get that shade if you're warm, and all these sorts of things that you wouldn't really expect to be weather, but they're trying to make fans as comfortable as possible given the weather conditions. So
I mean, with all the money we're paying for tickets and stuff, it's the least they could do when they're considering building a stadium. Yeah. I know, I mean, with Chicago being right on the lake, Bears games typically get strong winds because there really isn't nothing to stop the wind if it's coming off the lake. And luckily for us, though, in the winter, the lake is warmer than the mainland of Chicago. But so you get a little bit of a nice breeze there. But like you said, once you get such strong winds and you have cooler temperatures, those wind chill values will just
tank. And if you're having wind off the lake in the winter, you can get some snow with that too. So
True.
That gives you the whole other feel of the freezing and cold and snowy weather that fans in the Midwest love if you don't have a dome stadium.
Right, and that makes our stadium look just absolutely
And
beautiful.
it's home field advantage for when you have the southern teams coming up to play in your place. You want to be playing the Miami and the New Orleans in the winter. You don't want to be playing Green Bay, Chicago games in the snow. It's like, well, yeah, it's fun and it's classic, but you know, there's not much of an advantage there because it's the same climate for both teams.
Right, and although it's kind of an unfair advantage in a sense then if we're on this subject, that the Super Bowl is almost always in a warmer climate or in some sort of bowl because it can disrupt that.
There's actually specific rules that the league has set up for that, and they want temperature CA or whatever, and they're kind of going away from that. I like that. After New York built their nice new stadium, they've been promised the Super Bowl.
Oh.
So in the next year or two, I don't remember what year it is, but within the next year or two, the Super Bowl is going to be in New York, which opens up the question, does classic stadiums like Soldier Field or Lambeau Field, now that you open up the cold weather, should you allow a Super Bowl there? And that's a debate that's going on in the NFL right now.
Cool. Yeah. When we come back, we're going to switch gears from football to America's favorite pastime, baseball.
As soon as they get here, we split off into our groups and go to the bathroom and get a drink, and then we have snack time. And after snack time, we do an activity, whether it be going to the library, learning about different things, either money or college life, higher education.
I learned that books are very important, and that in able to get smarter, that you have to read books.
That you can learn a lot of stuff from books, and so you can get smart. That you can eat while studying, and some people fall asleep on the couch.
I love spending time with kids and just like hanging out with them, seeing them learn and grow, and being able to help teach them new things.
The most important aspect of College Mentors for Kids is giving the kids role models that they can look up to, role models who have been successful, and to let the kids know that they too can be successful.
My favorite thing was probably today when we went to the library and read books, and I got to just like hang out with my little buddy and read to her, and it was really fun just to watch her like learning how to read because she's in first grade and she's younger, and it was cool. It was bonding.
That they both are very intelligent.
A few of you may want to speak either after class or in my office hours. Work on a little further. Let's go ahead and take yours from the top and pass them back.
You. Oh, guys, I got an A! It's probably because I went to the library. I'm so excited.
everybody, I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
Danse, balance, suis la cadence. On lève bien tes hanches au bal du dimanche. Danse, que la fête commence. Dans ma belle robe blanche, je suis ton chou.
You didn't give up on sex? Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
Every child is curious. George, look what I found. Turn their curiosity into a lifelong love of learning. That's a periscope. It's one of the most important gifts you can share. Create a curious reader. Oh, you want to build a castle like that one? This is super bedtime reading. Share a book together today. Visit read.gov.
You can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bagging lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me. Feed the pig.
So, are you going out tonight? I can't. My parents say I have to be home right after work. That's so gay. Totally gay.
Ugh, that is so Emma and Julia.
Why are you saying that's so Emma and Julia?
Well, you know, when something is dumb or stupid, you say that's so Emma and Julia.
Imagine if who you are were used as an insult. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
Today is Saturday. Today is Saturday. Salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, throw a ball Thursday. Water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday. Let's move Monday, swap snacks Sunday.
All the healthy children eat well and move a lot. And move a lot. And move a lot. Eat well and move a lot. 60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day.
Skip a rope Saturday, freeze tag Friday, tap dance Thursday. Whole grains Wednesday, try a veggie Tuesday. Let's move Monday, split the sweet Sunday.
Eat well and move a lot.
Today is Saturday. Today is Saturday.
All the healthy children, all the healthy children. Get ideas. Get involved. Get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Danse, balance, suis la cadence. Ondule bien tes hanches au bal du dimanche. Danse, que la fête commence. Dans ma belle
You didn't give up on sex? Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
And now we're going to transition back to America's favorite pastime, which is, of course, baseball. One of the most played outdoor sports in the country, with over 160 games a year for each team.
And it dates back into the 1800s even. This game's been played forever. And outside, rain, of course, rain can delay baseball games and cancel them and cause all sorts of logistical nightmares for teams. So it has a direct impact on the playing of the games if weather tends to happen, but there's also a lot that can affect how the game is played based on other weather conditions.
Right. Typically we associate it with wind, The home run ball flies a little bit farther when you have wind.
Of course, the most exciting play in baseball.
Right. But also, weather, unlike football, doesn't have to deal with so much the cold weather that football is associated with. Although there have been a few games where snow has been an issue with baseball.
Yeah, Cleveland has the Indians, and they, just a few years back, had to move a whole entire series to Milwaukee, which has a retractable roof, due to a snowstorm that was going to hit the area. And that's, of course, early April, where you can still get some of those lingering snowstorms to happen. I don't think that's going to happen this year, given the winter pattern we've had, but there's a lot of times where you got to move games or even reschedule into different parts of the year based on weather events happening.
Right. As we alluded to back earlier on in the episode, lightning is a concern. Obviously, you have to shut down the stadium if lightning is in the immediate area, and that causes problems for baseball as well as football and other outdoor sports. But let's get into more so what specific weather conditions can
alter the game.
Yeah, because every foot counts. If you're hitting that ball and it goes on the warning track and just misses it, I mean, it could have if the weather conditions were right. I'll start off by talking about wind because that's the one people associate most with. When you get that tailwind, which is the wind behind the ball pushing it farther, you can get a significant distance out of it. I went to a few websites that verified that, let's say you hit a ball under calm conditions at about 400 feet.
Which is the average distance to center field of
Right.
the ball in the Major League Baseball.
Right, so you hit it at 400 feet. Well, let's say you have a 15-mile-an-hour tailwind. That ball can go up to 445 feet, which in some cases is out of the park almost.
Yeah, it's the difference from just scraping the wall or being a long-gone stunner home run. And that's just a 15-mile-an-hour wind, which happens on a very normal basis. Now, of course, that's if it's perfectly behind home plate.
Right. You're obviously going to have crosswinds, kind of like we talked about in golf, where it's not going to be a direct flight. But
with Wrigley Field over in Chicago, with its location of the lake, it's a lot of times the wind is affected. Whether the wind's blowing off of Lake Michigan onshore towards it makes home runs much shorter and makes it much more of a pitcher's ballpark. But if that wind's blowing out to outfield in Wrigley Field, the ball can really fly. So it depends on what day sometimes the Howell Baseball Park plays.
Right. I mean, we do get our nickname the Windy City, not for nothing, I guess. But yeah, wind definitely is a hindrance. And actually, I've looked up a few cases where it's actually a helper. I looked up the games with the most home runs by a team. And Toronto versus Baltimore had 10 home runs, won the game 18-3.
And this game was in Toronto, right?
This was in Toronto, in an exhibition stadium. And it was in the late 80s, September 14th, 1987. And I looked up the weather conditions, and they had an 8 to 10 mile-an-hour wind going consistently throughout the game and throughout the day. So when Toronto was up to bat, obviously it takes into account not just the wind, but their skill against Baltimore. But the wind aided them, and it was out of the west. So, and with the stadium being right near Lake Ontario, it's kind of the same thing that goes along with Wrigley Field and Lake Michigan. The winds coming off Lake Ontario, they can be a little bit stronger because you don't have that sort of blocking feature you have with buildings or trees.
Landforms or anything.
Yeah.
Exhibition Stadium is an older stadium. It was only one level, so you don't have any high stands that are blocking the wind, and that west wind would translate into a wind kind of not dead center, but would be going towards right center. And I know you probably don't have the lineups with you in that
Right.
game. I would be interested to see the difference of right-handed hitters to left-handed hitters. And the reason I say that, and I'm a big sports guy, is since Toronto hit so many more home runs than Baltimore did, where the wind's blowing out to right field, that helps left-handed batters, which are less common. So if you have a lot of power hitters that are lefties, that can help them a lot more in right. So I'd be interested to see that, but that's just how much different winds and stadiums can do at different times to different lineups, and it can be a super help or a super hindrance.
Because, I mean, I imagine that some of these home runs were not all out of the park. Some were close, and that wind gave it that little extra.
And like you said, with if it's going 400 feet to 445. Well, what if it's going to go 380 feet, which might be caught out, to going over the wall by 20 feet? It's not just a wall scraper to way out. It can carry a ball that would normally be caught over the wall, too.
It all depends on your airlift and, like you said, the stadium itself. It's set up with how it allows.
A lot of times, say if there's a wind coming towards the stadium from outfield to infield, and a lot of times there's a lot of stadiums that have upper decks in the outfield, and that wind not only is coming towards the batter, but it's got to go over the top of the stadium, and then it likes to come down. So not only is it pushing it shorter, it's pushing the ball down too sometimes.
Right.
So sometimes that effect can happen as well.
Right. So wind is a huge influence in terms of what it allows the baseball to do. Also, I did find the second most amount of home runs. Cincinnati versus Philadelphia back in 1999, 9 home runs in a game.
Ironically, that's the same. That was the same stadium that had the second coldest football game ever played that we were talking before. That's Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. It's a convertible stadium between the two sports.
So wow, they really know how to deal with their weather, I guess, or get the record-breaking weather-associated sports event. But with in this case, the winds were a little bit lighter, about 7 to 9 miles an hour, but it was out of the northeast, so that gave, I guess, Cleveland or Cincinnati a little bit of a bump.
Can help them out, and all depends. And now that was obviously a big stadium with the big high walls too, so of the stadium. So who knows how the air flows around and whether it circulates. And one thing I'm curious about, when maybe not necessarily in distance, but let's say you have a crosswind and you hit a ball that would normally be a home run, but that wind might push it foul even. So there's just so much that can go on with these air currents and what the components of the wind are doing on a certain day, that every day is different, every stadium is different, every outfield dimensions is different. So get the right stadium with the right conditions and something special can happen. That's what I love about the sport.
Yeah, and actually there's such thing as too much wind. I was looking up, because normally when we have windstorms, they're associated with thunderstorms, so something like this behind me would shut down the game. But if it's just wind event, specifically with no lightning or thunder, they aren't going to shut it down. And actually, it came to a point, back to a game in 1984 versus Texas. They actually had to stop the game because of a 60-mile-an-hour wind. So, I mean, we were talking about 15-mile-an-hour winds pushing it another like 50 feet or so.
That's like if a pitcher tries to throw to first base, he might hit second base.
Right. Well, yeah.
Now, maybe not to that extreme, but that's an accuracy that only a 60-foot difference could really be an effect.
Right, yeah, you could easily get a foul ball just to go, right? So there's a lot to do with wind, but we're actually going to backtrack a little bit and go into things that are more associated with weather per se. Temperature and humidity also play a part in how the ball can move through the air, because ultimately you're hitting it through a gassy substance, and when you have warmer temperatures, typically you have less molecules together, they're more spread apart, and that will translate to an easier time for the ball to fly through. Now there's a bit of a catch-22 with that, because also this warmer air that's less dense also typically is more moist, so it's going to make the ball actually a little bit heavier too. So while it's flying faster through the air,
it's more of a toll on your body to hit it harder.
Right, and it's also going to sink a little bit faster too, in a sense, because it's absorbing some of that moisture as it flies through the air.
Which begs the question, what if you're playing games, say, where the Colorado Rockies play up in Denver, where the air pressure is significantly lower up there on a normal day where it's not humid?
Right, because temperature and pressure actually are very well correlated. It's a thing called density, which is the measure of how many molecules are packed in the surface. And when you have low density, typically they're more compact, correct? And then, well, no, higher density. Okay, backtrack. Colder air is more dense, and that means it's more compact. When you have warmer air, that's when it's spread out and it's less dense. So, trying to make sure I explain it correctly. But when you have, let's say in Colorado, you'll have less dense air because you're higher up in the atmosphere at a lower pressure, and that will thin out the air, but actually will take out some of the moisture as well. So it's much easier to smack a home run over the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
Well, not over the mountains themselves, but the team.
At the field, they play at Coors Field, and they designed that field with actually very deep outfield dimensions, which normally if you have dimensions as big as an outfield as the Rockies have, it's a very pitchers-friendly ballpark. But Colorado actually has one of the highest home run totals as a ballpark, even though it's so big, which actually is really fun because then you get a lot of those doubles that turn into triples going into the deep gaps in the right and left center. But yeah, you're also getting a lot of these home runs, and these balls just carry forever out in Colorado. So it's a very interesting situation where they tailor the stadium so that the home run total isn't super impressive, but it's still high up there even if they have these tremendously huge outfield dimensions.
Yeah. So temperature and humidity also and pressure all kind of correlate to impact it. They don't impact it too much to the degree that wind does, because wind is a little bit more obvious.
And variable, and it's harder to prepare for.
Right. Also, though, when you do have lower pressure, typically you have also stronger wind speeds.
At least with a low pressure system.
Yeah, with a low pressure system. Not necessarily you have a low pressure system always sitting over Colorado, but you do have, when a lower pressure system, like let's say enters Chicago, typically you get more winds. Typically you have cooler temperatures, so and more moisture sometimes too associated with that. So there's a lot of ways weather plays into sports.
And going back, we talked a little bit about the design of football stadiums for that, and this is happening a lot too in baseball, where retractable roof stadiums are being built. Over in Seattle, the Mariners, they deal with a lot of rain. So they built a retractable roof stadium that doesn't necessarily hold out the air, but it just covers them from rain. And actually, the Milwaukee Brewers started out in Seattle and failed after one season with an outdoor stadium, and they moved. So then a few years later, they built a dome, and now a baseball team thrives there. So I don't know if that's directly related, but that's happening. Now Miami's building a retractable roof stadium for this next year, and that's all for the heat and for the rain that they can get. Houston's got a retractable roof. That's for those hot summer afternoons in Texas. So a lot of these stadiums are starting to do this now, and a lot of other dome teams. So a lot happens just with the effect on how they're building them. And it's really cool as a Brewer fan to be in a stadium, and then you hear thunderstorms are on the way, and you see the roof start closing over you during the game. And it's just really cool that they can do that now, and it's the point. And as a weather geek and a Brewer fan, I always want to be the person to press the button that closes the roof, because that would be a lot of fun. But I don't want to digress too far. But
I'm sure that person loves their job. I'm curious, though, also, when you mentioned Seattle, I wonder if fog played a role. Typically, they get a lot of foggy overcastness over their area. So
it could, and I guess I don't want to shift back to football for very long, but I do remember seeing very briefly, and I saw it more in a video on the internet than in print, so it's harder to remember all the details, but at Soldier Field, there was a game that was so foggy that they couldn't see more than 20 yards. The referees had the down and ball on and distance to go to the first down announced over the loudspeakers, so the fans knew what was going on because they couldn't see the field, it was so thick. So that can happen. But yeah, in Seattle, that could also be a reason why they play indoors most of the time.
I wonder if we're ever going to get to the point where we try and control the weather almost, in the sense that we have every stadium be a dome too.
And a lot of them are. And there's a little rule change, because there's a lot in the NFL. The stadiums have to choose whether or not they want the roof to be open or closed 2 hours before the game. So that's much harder to predict. And if there's any chance of rain, generally those stadiums like Indianapolis or Arizona will just close the roof to be safe.
Right.
In baseball, you can close and open the roof in mid-game. So baseball, you see a lot of these retractable roof stadiums stay open until they need to be closed, which is a lot nicer if you're the fan of traditional weather type situations.
And no matter what weather conditions actually start to arise, the true fans will stick it out no matter what.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see. A lot of times you see the real cold games, and you have the guys running around without their shirts on. Not the smartest thing, but the super fans, let's tough out this weather, and that's what it's all about.
Most of them have cheese heads on their head too.
Yes, we do.
So it's really cool to see the correlation between weather and sports, because
and how much it affects it, and how the teams try to use weather to the super advantage and make their opponent feel it much harder than they do with their color, their jerseys even.
Right, and it doesn't just go for baseball and football, it also goes for so many other sports that we do outside. Unfortunately, though, that does it for this episode of The Cold Front. Don't forget to like us, or watch us on Valpo VU TV at YouTube.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook, VU TV Weather. I'm Matthew Schaefer.
I'm Sean Bailey. Have a great day.